They thought $500 would scare him. They thought a piece of paper with the HOA stamp on it would shut him down. They thought a black man holding a fishing rod didn't belong by that water. But instead of folding, instead of paying, instead of walking away, he flipped the whole game. That same lake they tried to keep him out of. He bought it. He owned it. And the same man who fined him, the same HOA president who wrote up that ticket, was suddenly the one being told, "You can't fish here." This story isn't just about fishing. It's about power. It's about race. It's about money. It's about what happens when someone refuses to bow down and instead decides to own the very thing they were told to stay away from. Let's be real. Homeowners associations, HOAs, might just be one of the most hated groups in America. If you've never dealt with one, count yourself lucky. They act like mini governments. They write rules nobody asked for. They fine people for things as small as leaving a trash can out too long or painting your house a shade that's too bright. And here's the thing. Once you're under an HOA, it feels like they own you. They decide how tall your grass can be. They decide where you can park. They decide what allowed. And if you push back, they've got lawyers and money to bury you in paperwork until you give up. But when you mix an HOA with race, the power dynamic gets even nastier, because rules don't always apply the same way for everyone. What one person gets away with, another person gets fined for. What looks normal when they do it looks suspicious when you do it. And that's where this story begins. Imagine this, it's a warm summer evening. The kind where the air feels thick but the sky glows gold as the sun sinks low. A man, let's call him Marcus, grabs his fishing rod, not because he's trying to catch dinner, not because he's trying to win some contest, but because for him, fishing is peace. That lake near his home, that was his quiet place, the spot where the noise of the world faded away, a place where he could sit in silence, breathe, and feel free for just a little while. So Marcus walks down to the water like he had done before. He finds his spot. He casts his line. The bobber hits the surface with a soft splash, and for a moment, life feels right. But peace doesn't last long when someone doesn't want you there. He hears footsteps behind him, slow, heavy, purposeful. He turns, and there he is, the HOA president, clipboard in one hand. That smug look on his face. He's not there to fish. He's not there to say hello. He's there to tell Marcus, "You don't belong here." The words don't have to be said out loud, the fine does the talking. A $500 penalty for unauthorized use of the lake. Unauthorized. Like Marcus was a stranger. Like he didn't live in the same neighborhood, pay the same dues, walk the same streets. Marcus stares at the paper in his hand. $500. Not because he was breaking the law, not because he was causing trouble, but because someone with a clipboard decided he wasn't allowed. And here's the part you can't ignore. Marcus wasn't the only one who fished there. Neighbors, white neighbors, had cast their lines in that same water without a problem. Nobody walked down with a clipboard for them. Nobody wrote up a ticket. Nobody called it unauthorized. So what was different this time? You already know. Now here's what most people would do in Marcus's position. Some would argue. Some would pay the fine just to make it go away. Some would give up fishing at the lake altogether, because fighting an HOA, that's a losing battle. But Marcus wasn't about to let that slide. He started asking questions. Who really owned the lake? Who had the right to say who could fish there and who couldn't? Because the HOA acted like they owned it. They enforced rules around it. They fined people over it. But acting like you own something and actually owning it are two different things. So Marcus did what most people don't think to do. He started digging. He went to the county record's office. He checked deeds. He followed the paper trail, and what he found changed everything. The HOA didn't own the lake. They used it. They pretended it was theirs, but on paper. The actual ownership was separate. The lake was its own property. And the craziest part, it was for sale. Now imagine that moment. You're sitting there with a $500 fine in your hand. They told you you didn't belong. They told you you couldn't fish here, and then you find out the whole thing could be yours. Marcus had a choice: pay the fine or pay the price to flip the entire script. And he made his move. He sat down with a realtor. He ran the numbers, he looked at the papers, and then he did it. He bought the lake. Think about that for a second. That same body of water the HOA president stood over like a king with his clipboard now belonged to Marcus. And when the ink dried, when the deal closed, the power flipped instantly. The HOA couldn't fine him for fishing. They couldn't tell him where he could or couldn't cast his line. In fact, it was the other way around. Marcus now had the power to say who could and couldn't set foot near that water. The same president who fined him was suddenly the one locked out. Now let me pause right here. Because if you think this is just a funny story about beating an HOA, you're missing the bigger picture. This is deeper than fishing. This is deeper than a fine. For generations, black people in America have been told, you don't belong here. Whether it was whites-only signs on water fountains or being redlined out of neighborhoods or getting pushed out of pools and lakes, the message has always been the same: this isn't yours. You can't be here. And every time the fight wasn't just about being allowed in, it was about ownership. Because when you own something, nobody can tell you to leave. Marcus didn't just get revenge, he broke the cycle. He took control of something they said wasn't his and made it undeniable. And if you think that was wild, wait until you hear what happened the day the HOA president tried to walk back down to that lake like nothing had changed. Click here, you won't believe it. The HOA president didn't know at first. He thought the fine had worked. He thought Marcus had either paid up or backed off. So a few weeks later, he does what he always did: walk down toward the lake with his clipboard, ready to write up someone else, ready to act like he owned it. But this time, something was different. There was a sign: private property, no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted. And at the bottom, Marcus's name. The president froze. Imagine the look on his face. Imagine realizing the man you fined, the man you tried to keep out, now owned the ground under your feet. He turned and there was Marcus, calm, fishing rod in hand, not a word spoken, just a look that said everything: not today, not ever again. That moment wasn't just about a lake. It was about power flipping hands. For once, the rules didn't protect the president. The clipboard didn't mean anything. The fine was worthless. Marcus had rewritten the rules. So let's step back. Was buying the lake extreme? Maybe. But sometimes extreme is the only way to win, because paying the fine would have been easy. Fighting in court would have dragged on for years. But owning the lake, that was permanent. That was undeniable. And that's the lesson here. When the world tells you you don't belong, you've got two choices. You can shrink yourself to fit their box, or you can break the box entirely and build your own. Marcus didn't just win against an HOA. He showed what happens when you stop asking for permission and start taking control. And for black communities especially, this story hits harder, because ownership has always been the key. The key to freedom, the key to power, the key to making sure nobody can tell you where you can or can't exist. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reclaiming something bigger. If you felt that, hit subscribe. The next story will shake you even more.